So we go down. Check, check. Yep, we're in the building. So we're gonna hit the button at about at 4 o'clock. Already broadcasting live on Facebook. I see who's in the room already. It's early. Bless Locke is in the room. We got Tanya Moffett is in the room. Mike Jr. is in the room. Suzette Ellison's in the room. We see you. Okay. Eleanor Bumpers is in the room. Thank you for coming back. All right, give me about so I'm about 7 minutes out, y'all. And then I'm gonna punch the button, then we can go to work. I'm just organizing the Zoom for our special guest. So guys, just bear with me while I, get everything set up. Get your headphones going. Check. Hey, Alvin. Here we're together. Connecting. Okay. Mr. Bragg.
What's up? How you doing, sir?
We are good. We are good. We see you and we hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, you sound like you got that good radio sound.
Oh, we doing the radio thing. You'll see when we open it up. I don't know if you've ever seen the show, but it looks like a radio station. It basically is, just without a transmitter.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, how's everything going?
It's going all right. Going all right.
Campaign running.
Campaign is running. We're in full swing. Got DC squared up, got Georgia squared up, and now we got to take care of home.
Okay. All right. Dope. In about 6 minutes, SAUNDREA is here. SAUNDREA.
I am live. Okay. Hey, Alvin, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
All right. How do we sound?
Y'all sound good. That's what I'm saying. Y'all sound great.
Don't sound muffled or nothing, right?
There's a little bit of feedback now.
Feedback from your headphones. Which one is yours?
Take me down.
Which one is yours?
Wherever you put me.
Do you still hear? Are you still hearing right now?
I can hear you, but I'm.
All right, wait, hold on. Let me just find you.
Okay.
Now you're off, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, now I turn you up. You hear yourself now?
Yes, I do.
All right, cool.
I'm a little better now, Alvin.
Yep.
No feedback, yeah, okay.
All right. Yeah, all right.
Thanks.
Stands in the building. All right. And we can turn down 1, 2, microphone number 3, because that's not happening today. All right, so we're about to hit the button in about 5 minutes. Was it 4:55? I'll probably go in a little earlier once Stan sits down. Hey, what?
How my background look? My wife just put up this second photo. She said that it was a little too blank on the other side. I had up the Harlem photo. She just added in the second one. I told her.
Yeah, nah, it looks good because she balanced it out.
That's exactly what she said.
yeah, she balanced it out.
That exact same word.
Because you have the Harlem photo without the other photo to the right. Yeah, right, exactly. It needed the balance. It looks good, and that's the photo behind you is the jazz, the day of jazz in Harlem.
Yeah.
Picture.
Yeah,
I love that photo. That's great. They recreated that one and did it for hip hop actually.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we all went on the stoop. I was there. I was invited to the shoot, and we all went. And what's his name? Gordon Parks took the picture.
Oh, I need to get that one and put that one up next.
Yeah, that's what you need, baby. That's the one. Yeah, Gordon Parks took the picture, and oh my God, it was incredible. It was incredible. And it's called the Day of Hip Hop in Harlem, and that was fantastic. All right, so Stan's in the house. Stan, give me a mic check.
1, 2.
There you go. Stan's in the house.
One.
All right, just lean into the mic, man.
Right.
Why are you all gentle?
All right.
There you go. Good.
1, 2.
All right, y'all. So I'm gonna hit the button, man. When you hear the music's going. Huh?
How are we?
Want to know?
Do y'all need my video or no?
No, we good. Huh?
You want my video or no?
No, we need your video.
No,
Yeah.
I sent it. You got it.
Yeah, I have your video, and I'm gonna play it before we get to you. You talking about this? Yeah. You want to turn your headphones up? Is that what it is?
You're talking about your video from last year, right? About your launch, right?
No, I mean, should I keep my screen on, my video on here?
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm gonna hit the button, y'all. We're gonna start the show. Here we go. Because the room is already kind of getting active. Listen to the chit chat. All right. Here we go, y'all. Once again, this is the One Nycha Show. Oh, man, and we're back. Oh, boy, we got a big show today. I promise you that. It's going to be absolutely, positivity, informative, and, I mean, a big show for One Nycha. So I'm giving you all a chance to get your watch party started. So tell a friend, please share the video. This is one for the record books right here. We're putting you in touch. We're gonna take you to the One Nycha Show. All right, let me let y'all know that I'm in the room. There you go. So you go. Rock Logic's here. And there goes SAUNDREA Coleman. You know what? I'm gonna hit the button right now. We just gonna get started. Cause I'm really animated right now, and I'm like, oh, we're doing this thing. SAUNDREA had set up. So just a quick thing, because we only got an hour, and I wanna definitely dedicate 95% of that hour to our guest, and we'll get into that in a minute. But this week, short and sweet. We took off last week. right? Because you know it was I don't even think I was feeling well. Something was going on. But last week we took off, and then now this week we're back. But we wanted to come back big, which was really important. Other than that, my week was very much uneventful, and that's what it was. Sandrea, what's going on with you?
My week was really good as always, thank God. And last week I was in the hospital for a day and went through some issues with the feedback. Went through
Lean
some
in.
issues.
There you go.
Went through some issues in the ER. And thank goodness that I'm a leader in the community. I was able to reach out to my assembly man's office, and one of his staff members helped, get things done for me in the ER because
Right.
they were treating me kind of crazy. Which, when you're not feeling well, you don't need that. And it's still going back and forth. I sure was doing.
Got you.
Yeah. So, and then
Which was incredible because if you didn't have anybody that was there to really like deal with you, right, then you just would have been sort of like, eh.
And at the end of the day, I do know how to advocate for myself.
Right.
But I was in a lot of pain. So it was like I didn't think to ask for the AOD. And I usually know to do that. And I was just like kind of out of sync. And I sat there. I was triaged within 5 minutes and inside.
Right.
But never got a room for 2 hours. And it wasn't busy. And I'm like, this is systemic. So, and then the LD did come down, and when the shift changed, I was treated like a human being, which I should have been treated. I was literally royalty. But Romans 8:28 says all things work together for good. And because of that mistreatment, I probably would have been discharged without having the tests and stuff, the CAT scan and all the stuff that they did for me. So I'm thankful, and I got a diagnosis of what was going on, and I'm doing so much better.
Dope.
And so that was one of the reasons. I was going to try to come through, but y'all all was like, no. So
knock it off.
and I just want to shout out UES for BLM. Today is our 237th day going straight. I'm one of the organizers out there, and we're keeping it, going. And Miss Taylor, Jocelyn Taylor came out yesterday, bought me some PPE. So thank you for that, for the community. So, and that's it. I'm just, being busy and virtual meetings and stuff like that, and gearing up for Friday for my social justice committee meeting on the community board 8. So I'm a co-chair of that. So get ready for that. Yeah.
All right, Stan, what's been going on with you, brother?
Oh, it's been a very, very busy week. I want to give a big shout out and Miss Alvin, because he had several residents to this ongoing fight, and then we followed up and went to the office with about maybe Friday to the manager's office to confront the office to find out what's happening. When's it going to do that?
Yeah.
To actually confront the disrespect that so many Nycha residents are dealing with when they go to the office and ask for information. So that was great. Big shout out to Tammy Reyes. She's a powerful leader in Woodside. Big shout out to Shantae Austin, who came out and support from now. We're going to be going to Astoria, because now I'm hearing over there they don't have heat. There's a building 302 Astoria Boulevard where our chairperson of the Justice for All Coalition is Sylvia White. Half the building has heat, half the building does not. So this is why we call for a Green New Deal for public housing, because these buildings are really falling apart. And can you imagine being a senior citizen out today, and yet cold as it was and cold as it is, and you don't have heat, and you're not getting any information from the manager's office? So we're going to be actually having a press conference soon in front of our Astoria Boulevard 302, and there's maybe another 2 or 3 buildings in that development with no heat. So this is an outrage. We're going to really confront the manager's office, because they're not giving folks any information whatsoever in regards to what's going on and when it's going to be on. So we're gonna confront them. We're gonna again Tammy and Lorenzo Brea, who is great out there knocking on doors, and we're gonna fight back. It's a shame that folks are living like this still, in the city, especially now during the wintertime. It's an outrage.
All right, great. So here's what I'm gonna do before I intro. Give me a second. We're gonna get to that. that. There we go. For 1 second. Let me catch that. Hold on. Do. What did I not do? Hold on.
With their high-powered legal teams who manage to escape prosecution, it's the stories of all the homeless man who buys food and toothpaste with a counterfeit bill and gets 3 to 6 years in jail. The woman living in a shelter, prosecuted for selling a single cigarette on a downtown street. And the countless New Yorkers unfairly held on Rikers Island simply because they can't afford bail. I'm Alvin Bragg, and I'm running for Manhattan District Attorney to change that. I'm a son of Central Harlem, a husband and father raising 2 kids here, and someone who spent the better part of 2 decades in the courtroom, standing up to the powerful and fighting to get justice. As the Chief Deputy Attorney General in New York State, I oversaw some of the office's biggest cases, from exposing illegal behavior by the Trump Foundation to taking on banks for housing discrimination. And I led the special unit that investigated police-involved killings. As a federal prosecutor, I successfully prosecuted corrupt politicians, Democrat and Republican. I've always fought to defend the rights of those without status or power, the New Yorkers who need justice most and deserve it. As DA, from day one, I worked to make the office the progressive leader it should be. That means more aggressive steps to reverse mass incarceration, especially in communities of color. It means thorough and transparent investigations of police misconduct and overhauling the sex crimes unit to get justice for victims. It means bringing new funding and focus to reentry programs and refusing to take campaign donations from any lawyer who appears before the office. And it means continuing to keep neighborhoods safe and ensuring one standard of justice for all of us who call Manhattan home. That's what I'm going to do as district attorney, and that's why I'm running.
And without further ado, I'm introducing to you Alvin Bragg. Alvin, what's up?
I'm well. How are you doing? How are you doing? It's great to be with you today. SAUNDREA, great to hear you're doing better. Sorry to hear about that ordeal in the hospital, but great to be with y'all. I'm Alvin Bragg, your fellow New Yorker, lifelong Harlem resident, and excited to be on the podcast, One Nycha.
Wow. It's great that you're here. I mean, we're glad that you came. When SAUNDREA said you were going to be on, I was like, amazing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, go ahead, SAUNDREA.
Yeah, I'm just thankful to have met Mr. Bragg some months ago through our East Harlem Dems, Democratic Club. There was a bunch of candidates on there, and me being so civically engaged in my community and beyond, I vet people. And I was listening to all of the candidates speak, and I took so many notes, so much notes on him. A few of them I took some notes on him, but for Mr. Bragg, I took so much notes, and I was like, wow, he's qualified, like really qualified.
Wow.
And we met again at a COVID memorial. We met in person rather at a COVID memorial in East Harlem, and I did the closing prayer, and kind of connected outside. He gave me his number. We exchanged numbers, and we've been in touch. And he comes from a powerful church. I know he'll talk about that. Shout out to the Miltons that are members of your church that you attend, and I know them as well because their family come out, and Matt actually comes out of my home church as well. So yeah, he's the real deal. So
well, Mr. Bragg, without further ado, please let the people of Nycha know who you are, what you stand for, right? And I know I'm turning to my right because the computer screen's over here. That's why I look like that. Just in case you're like, why are you looking over there? What's that about?
I thought you would give me your best side, you know.
Look, Nycha and the city, right?
I'm trying to figure out which one's my best side. I don't know.
It's good. You know what I'm saying? You look fantastic. So tell us what's going on. What is your platform and what are you running for? And Nycha's listening.
Definitely. Well, let me also say, Ms. Coleman gave the how we met. I actually knew of her work before because I've been, before we met, to, as she mentioned at the top of the show, the daily Black Lives Matter protest she's been having. I think the longest ongoing one in the city, maybe the country. So I'd been there before we'd even met with my daughter and had seen it. So, but yeah, so as she said, I'm a child of the Black church. Started out, with my first protest activity back when I was the youth leader of our youth council at Abyssinian Baptist Church. My first interaction with the criminal justice system was, a police shootout on my block. I remember being, everyone was one of those hot summer days that scurry everyone in and you come back out and what happened. And then it was the 80s in Harlem. I was stopped at gunpoint 3 times by the NYPD. And that's really what got me into criminal justice. After the first one, I filed a civilian complaint, with the support of my pastor, my council member. Y'all know, how important it is to sort of have those, as you said, sort of those structures in place, people to help advocate with you. But I knew then, after those early experiences, that I wanted to do something to fight about that. And growing up, I also, had people who weren't police put a gun in my face 3 times. And so I said, we got to do something about this, both public safety and police accountability and civil rights. So for the past, 20 plus years, I've been in the courtroom fighting for justice and fairness and civil rights and public safety. I was a civil rights lawyer and a criminal defense lawyer, then a federal prosecutor focused on public corruption, and then ultimately the chief deputy attorney general in New York State, overseeing the whole office of 1200. So led that office's work fighting stop and frisk, showing that only 0.1% of the shops resulted in a conviction for a gun offense, prosecuting an FBI agent for lying, led the office's work on the Trump Foundation, holding Trump accountable and suing him more than 100 times for all the horrible stuff he did.
Shot for that.
Sorry, I had to hit the button for you.
List is too long. But really just working on issues that affect our communities, so it's a fairer, more just system. And now I'm running for Manhattan District Attorney. My day job, I'm a professor at New York Law School and the co-director of the Racial Justice Project there. So I teach criminal law classes, and I'm as co-director of the Racial Justice Project, suing our mayor and police department on behalf of Eric Garner's mom and family and other police accountability organized, because we still don't have key details 6+ years after Mr. Garner was killed. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm running for Manhattan District Attorney, and I'm running on a platform of shrinking the system. So all the cases that have to do with kind of order and control, we won't do those, but we'll do the ones that deal with actual real public safety. We'll focus on this uptick in gun trafficking by stopping the flow of guns into our communities. I led the work, the AG's office, on looking at the firearm dealers, the federally licensed firearm dealers, all of whom are outside of Manhattan. We don't have any in Manhattan or in New York, but they're the ones profiting off of the flow of illegal guns into our city and state. And in reentry, I won't speak for everyone, but I speak for everyone I know. Everyone I know has someone who is justice involved. And that's no different in my family. I had a relative who was incarcerated and in solitary confinement, and then came and lived with me and my wife. It's my brother-in-law, so my wife's younger brother lived with us for a year plus. And I know Ms. Coleman talked about the scripture. He said when he was in solitary confinement, all he could do is read the Bible and do push-ups, and the Bibles would get him through. So really trying to scale up the structures. He was able to have support from his family, and that put him on a great path, and he's doing fine today. But that's just, it shouldn't matter who your family is, where your zip code is. If you got a loving sister like he does, we should all be supported with housing and employment structures, because it's the right thing to do. The Sunday school teacher in me says the right thing to do, but also it makes us all safer, supports our community. So that's my general.
Alvin, I got something in the chat room already. Hit the chat room already. So Tamika L. Map, she says, as district attorney, sorry about that, I'm a little tired. I do like 5 shows a day. As district attorney, how would you handle fatal use of police force in local police? How would you deal with that?
Yeah. So look, this is why I went to law school, right? I mean, the gun put in my face on the corner of 139th Street and those unlawful stops is why I went to law school. And my first, time in court. We're suing the state police for excessive force. So by the time I would be district attorney, the state attorney general's office by law last year, actually around the time that Ms. Coleman's protest started, the state legislature passed a bill giving the attorney general jurisdiction over all times that a police officer kills someone. So that'll be handled at the state level. The theory is that the state attorney general's office doesn't have a day in, day out relationship with any police departments, so there can be more distance. I ran that unit when I was at the attorney general's office. So I know a lot about that work. So I'll talk about what we did there. We did a more transparent. We shared with the public our factual findings, our legal conclusions, did reports focused on the trauma of families, and did independent investigations. And so while I won't have that jurisdiction as Manhattan DA, there's still a whole lot of other things that police are doing that's wrong that don't result in a death, right? So we have excessive force cases where someone doesn't die. That would be my jurisdiction. We're going to handle them the same way. We're going to have a team of dedicated folks who don't do cases with the NYPD. All they're going to do is investigate the NYPD. So they're not going to have a conflict. We're going to be transparent with our findings. Given my expertise in this area, both lived and professional, they're going to report directly to me. I'm thinking about housing them outside of the normal DA's office, so they're not even caught up in the normal run of the office. And then, in addition to force, I would also say we got to focus on lying. I prosecuted an FBI agent who lied. Anyone who's had kind of involvement with the justice system will know that it's very deferential to police and their police testimony. And we've got to hold folks accountable when they don't tell the truth. I mean, that's just so fundamental, right? I got 2 kids, and
Right.
I hope they learn that in kindergarten, right? It's just so basic. So we got to focus on that. So I went a little bit beyond the question, but I wanted to talk about what the DA's office will have jurisdiction over when I get there.
Is that called test the lying?
That's what they
Is
call
that
it. Yeah, test the
Yeah,
line.
okay. Test the lying.
Okay.
And
So-
the notion that you could, call someone who's sworn to protect and serve, and then you find they lied, and people say, well, what does that mean? No, I don't know. Actually, everyone who goes has got to tell the truth. Even more so our police officers, and when they don't, we're going to hold them accountable.
And I like that because I think that it is that, right? The cop gets up there and he lies, right? And then we go, I mean, he lied, but and there's no, this has actually polluted our politics across the board on a national level, really. I mean, people are going into Congress and they're lying. And it's, and I'm like, but before this administration Trump was in, I thought that when you lied in front of Congress, that this was a prosecutable offense, that you would go to jail for this, you know what I'm saying? And none of these people are held responsible when they stood in front of Congress and told bold-faced lies. And am I wrong? Alvin Bragg, help me. Were they supposed to go to jail?
Here's what the craziest thing about it all. It's like that lie that like the 5-year-old tells, right? Like they're right in front of you and they got the cookie in their hand and they say, "Oh, I didn't eat any cookies today." It's like, huh? I mean, they're lying about things that are right on. We talk about this DC stuff, so glad that Trump is not president, but really firmly believe we got to hold him accountable. And he lies about things that he lies about things he says. And this started on day one. Remember, he lied about the number of people at his inauguration, and they had to fly over a photo comparing his inauguration to Obama's. He said, "I got more people." It's like, what? Does grass count? You counting grass blades?
Like, and you're looking at both photos, right? And you're going, I don't know what photo this dude is seeing, but what I'm seeing is a whole different image. And you're so right. I mean, so as Attorney General of New York, am I correct?
So I was the chief deputy of New York, New York's Attorney General's office.
Okay, so would that bring Trump's case under your jurisdiction about what he has going on in New York and all his criminal activities, criminal activities going on?
So yes, So the New York State Attorney General, Tish James, is investigating now. That was my old office. And they're investigating. And then the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which I'm running to be, has an investigation. And so, yeah, and it's very important. The next Manhattan District Attorney is going to inherit that investigation, which, you know, could be the most important investigation in the history of the country, right? You know, in terms of rule of law and democracy and things like that. So I've been following it closely. You know, it's gone all the way up to the Supreme Court, the subpoenas of Trump, and now back down. As far as we can tell from the public information, seems like the heart of one of the things they're investigating, both the state, both Tish James and the Manhattan DA's office, is that on the one hand, apparently Trump was saying, oh, you know, this piece of land I got, well, when the tax person comes, it's worth $1, you know, but when it's time to go get a loan on it, all of a sudden it's worth $1 million. I'm making the numbers up. But obviously if you know, that is, you know, serious stuff. And so we'll see what you know, state it's in at the time of a new DA, but it's very important. And I would just say to your listeners, you know, I've got specific experience with Trump, leading the Trump Foundation case where we held him accountable for his misconduct there. And also experience with these kind of cases. I've done tax fraud cases. I've tried a mortgage fraud case. And, you know, it's not, I won't say it's rocket science. You know, we got doctors out there saving lives, but, you know, I wouldn't want a district attorney who's, you know, doing the first time on the Trump case.
Right.
Makes sense.
So interesting enough, bringing it to a Nycha sort of a question, like, what would you do to make Nycha safer? I mean, we have a lot of children that are dying in Nycha. We have the gangs that are in Nycha, and we have a lot of unpleasantries that are happening in Nycha. So what role would your office play in making Nycha safer?
Look, I'm glad you asked, and I'll kind of maybe start with sort of the sort of historical stuff. When I talk about, and you played the video, sort of two systems of justice, you know, and you know, typically we're talking about your Harvey Weinstein not being held accountable, but you know, your young black men being held accountable, or someone living in poverty being held accountable for something that has nothing to do with public safety. I think the number one example of this is a Nycha example, right? We have Nycha leaders who we know lied on forms about lead, right?
Yep, that's right.
Right? That's the first system of justice. Apparently you can lie, not just once, but hundreds of times about the safety of our children and whether there's been lead paint inspections, and nothing can happen to you. But, you know, and I'm sure you'll all have relatives with this experience. I have too. But you can get stopped, you know, just for going to visit a friend and arrested. That makes no sense. So I view these two systems of justice as really, you know, Nycha being a prime example. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to be very macro, which is the leadership, the books, the finances. Some of that's management and not criminal. But from my experience, and particularly with that, the falsification of the lead, how much of that is there? What else is there? That's public safety directly, right? I mean, that's hundreds of kids exposed to lead poisoning because someone in leadership lied. That's unconscionable.
Yep. Lifetime injury. So.
Yes. All right. So it's interesting, right? Because we have to, you know, as the candidate, we have to gain the trust of people. So what we have happening in the chat room is, and here I'm going to shoot it out, you know, raw. Unfortunately, everyone running for office lately is not doing their jobs to the fullest. Cy Vance made promises he didn't keep. Letitia James has dragged her feet. Why would we trust your words to be true when no one seems to care until it's election time? And that's from Cynthia Tibbs.
So look, and I think, look, I'm first and foremost a voter. Right? Like this is the first time I'm running. So I'm usually the one asking that question. And I'm also a person who's a public corruption prosecutor. So I haven't just dealt with politicians who haven't kept their word. I've dealt with politicians who have lied, taken bribes, falsified books. So I can be, you know, sometimes quite cynical. I think that what you have to do is look at someone's body of work and their motivation, right? So everything I talk about comes from my personal experience. You know, so if I wouldn't do it, I'm going to be hurting my kids who will be stopped and frisked, right?
Right.
If I don't follow up on the community reinvestment, I'd be dishonoring the memory of my father who ran homeless shelters and my mother who was a career educator. If I don't fund reentry the way I say I'm going to, I would be stepping on my own experience of my brother-in-law lived with me for a year. So I think we got to look at people's experiences. And I do think with, first-time candidates, there's no, body of work in the actual office. But for me, I was in government for 15 plus years. So you can look at the times, when I was at the, city council working side by side with Senator Robert Jackson, who's endorsed me, fighting for equitable funding of education. You can look at all my labor cases I've done, fighting for, prosecuting employers who pay a criminally low wage. Or you can look at my landlord cases where I prosecuted landlords who harass tenants. I've got a body of work. And so it would be really wild if, I woke up one day, became DA and said, you know what? Now that I'm here, I'm not going to do any of that. It would be inconsistent with my entire.
Yeah, now I'm different.
You have receipts.
I'm a different guy.
There you go.
Let me
I
ask you
said a whole lot of words. That's
what
what I just, Ms. Coleman, I should have just said that. That's right. Show me the receipts. That's right.
You got them. You got them.
So now,
Yes, man.
so in Nycha, we're still having issues with asbestos, mold, and a whole host of issues that they're continuing to lie about and not giving the residents the truth. So how can we go after Nycha for those injustices that are happening right now?
Yeah, we need leadership on it. And this is why, leadership does matter. I really respect the question, in terms of how do we hold people accountable? And, there's a temptation to say, well, doesn't matter who's there, but it does. We need someone who cares about these issues and will use the power this way. So yeah, I want those books. And, it's a good thing about being a prosecutor. You got, subpoena power. I want to see those books. And particularly when they tell you they've lied, right? Like they're not even saying we didn't lie. They're saying, oh, well, the lies didn't matter. Or like, we tried hard. I mean, that doesn't,
Right.
Lie is a lie is a lie. You don't get points for effort for trying to tell the truth. So
Yeah.
I think an investigation that starts with, and I said, I've got a lot of experience with, these types of investigations with matching up the experiences of residents. So pairing, coming to you as leaders and other leaders in Nycha and getting the lived experience, and then pairing that up with the books that will subpoena, and that will lay bare the lies, right? So if they say, hey, we're checking these apartments within, 48 hours, and I talk to 15 people you direct me to, and I get 15 affidavits, well, either something's got to give. So that's how you build those kind of cases.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
So we ended up getting this question, and it is, as DA, what would you do to develop a trusting relationship with the immigrant community in Manhattan?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it particularly so now because of Trump. And I just tell y'all sort of a little story of how deep it is in terms of sort of, understandable distrust of government. When I was at the Attorney General's office, I mentioned we did a bunch of labor cases, and we had one case that we had done everything. We had the money, kind of settlements to give back to the workers, the wages that they had earned but hadn't been paid, and we just had the checks. And so we called the representative and said, yeah, we can distribute the checks. And the easiest way was for them to come to the building. They said, well, they don't want to go to the Attorney General's office, right? We know you're the state, but everything we hear about the Attorney General is this guy, Sessions or Ashcroft in DC. There was so much, people were willing, so distrustful because of Trump that they didn't want to come get their hard-earned money. So we obviously got it to them another way. But being in the middle of, the DACA, we sued over the Muslim travel ban, family separation at the border. So I've been in the middle of a number of these litigations, and then not to mention people who engage in immigration fraud, right? They hold out falsely that they're going to help someone get citizenship, and they just take their money. I've done those kind of cases too. So what we need is a community presence. I mean, right now in Washington Heights, there's a Manhattan DA's office. It's empty. There's no one there. And so this whole notion of sitting back in an office with a suit and a tie on and waiting for people to come to you, that's just not how things work, right? If you want to partner with community, you need to be in the community. You need to be talking to local leaders, and not just the elected leaders, right? The folks who are running the food drive, the folks who are the Little League coach like I am, the Sunday school teacher like I am. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be out there with existing community structures. Another thing, sometimes government tries to come in and replace. Oh, we're going to have this government council. Well, no, people already exist. The leadership's there. We just need to go and meet them and listen. And I've been doing that throughout my career. That's how we build a lot of our cases. We get witnesses from community groups.
All right.
I have a question.
SAUNDREA Coleman.
I guess I got to stay like this with the mic, so it's not too bad. You spoke about Washington Heights. I was an intern and I stayed on at Isabella Nursing Home in Washington Heights. And that facility, New York Warren Courtney Gross actually shared a story last year regarding the COVID deaths in there. They were underreported and people didn't know. I was reaching out to elected officials to try to get some help to that facility. What happens with the underreporting? Because I reached out to the governor's office. That's when he started talking about nursing homes in his daily briefing. So my question is, what goes on with underreporting, or is that considered criminal, or is that just, they can just do that? Because there was at least 3 refrigerator trucks that were filled there. And I don't know how it is now. I mean, it's still rough there, but not as bad, but they were dying. We would see 3 to 10 residents die normally in a month. And it was times it was 30, 50, 7, it was really, and the trucks were up there. The truck was there hidden, when they move one, then they bring another. So my question is, with just putting in the numbers, fudging the numbers or making them undercounted, is that criminal, or is that anything that the state can do?
It's definitely can be criminal and should be investigated. Thank you for your leadership on this. I mean, COVID has ravaged, so many of our communities, and this is an issue that wasn't getting enough attention. So thank you for flagging it. And then we saw, DC, Trump launch an investigation. So I was suspicious of that. That's political purposes. But we need a real investigation. And yes, people who are lying on official forms, official business records, especially ones that get filed as part of a government process. We know, nursing homes are very heavily regulated industry. So they're filing documents with the government all the time. Yeah, I've done those kind of false filing cases. That's a crime. If you can prove it was done intentionally. And so we need a full, exhaustive, independent investigation. It should not, be overseen by anyone related with Cuomo, right? Because he's involved in the oversight of that. It needs to be independent. If I were Manhattan District Attorney, I would be doing that because, it's important. But 2, we're not out of the woods yet, right? I mean, this is a problem where if you just let it go unchecked, it'll continue to happen. And it's not just the lies. Some people say, oh, well, no, again, going back to the lead poison, you shouldn't lie, but then also the consequences here, right? The lying about sort of fundamental health issues is the lie, but you're also impacting and impairing people's health. So yes, it could be a crime. And if I were Manhattan DA, I would be investigating this today.
Lost a lot of residents. I used to minister a lot of residents.
Yeah, no, it is.
A related question to that. They continue, Nycha, going back to Nycha, they're continuing to lie about how they're keeping the buildings clean, during the pandemic. And I know we're losing a lot of residents, as a result of that. So would you also go after Nycha on that issue? Because they're not cleaning the developments in the way they say they are, and it's causing people to die, literally.
Yeah, no, I've heard about this from residents and was actually listening to the former sanitation commissioner the other night, who is running for mayor, and she was explaining the different oversight for where sanitation's jurisdiction ends and where Nycha's begins. Yeah, I know people want to talk about trash and things. Oh, it's just trash, but you just said it right, Stan. It affects people's health, it affects their living conditions, and it's the same general thing as what we were just talking about with SAUNDREA, or talking about earlier with lead. If people are saying something is happening and filling out official paperwork and then not doing it, we have to investigate. People need to be held accountable. And then I like to, when we do those kind of cases, because people always say, well, you know, to connect the misstatement, and I've done that case, to the bigger harm. So the bigger harm here is the health, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic. And, you know, I remember when we first got those trash cans that had lids on them, right? Because back in the day, when you didn't have a lid, it would just overflow, and you have the rats running around, and they got the lids. Even that little modest development was helpful. But if you don't pick the trash up, doesn't matter if there's a lid or not.
Right.
That's true.
That's right.
All these issues, you know, and they're all interconnected with public safety, right? You know, if the trash is overflowing, and then you walk the long way, you know, home. You know, if there's not enough lighting, you know, we had a time when the, you know, police were there congregating, protecting themselves, and not really investing in some of these front end things, you know, the lighting, the sanitation, the lead, I mean, the maintenance, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, all of that. And that's all from the jurisdiction of Manhattan DA's office. It's, you know, it's the ones in Manhattan, obviously, the ones in other boroughs are not, but.
So just a quick question, right? And I got to ask this one because, you know, a lot of people in Nycha, you know, they use marijuana, right? A lot of people in New York City use marijuana. What is the current policy on marijuana use at this stage in the game in the city?
So, I mean, so you want me to give you I give you my blunt answer. My blunt answer is
yes.
Marijuana.
Hit it with a bat, baby. Just go ahead. It's a blunt instrument.
Oh, wow. That's good.
That went over your head. We'll share that with you later.
After I said it, I heard it.
Blunt.
Yeah.
Okay. That was good.
Y'all know I'm slow.
I only heard it after I said it.
Wow.
That was nice.
But marijuana's been legal for white people for 50 years. So as long as I've been alive, marijuana's been legal for white people, right? I mean, you know, you walk through Central Park and you smell weed, and it's a white person's not arrested. I've gone to court in the middle of the night to represent a friend who was arrested for one blunt, literally one blunt. Police officer who arrested him told him, "Oh man, you gotta do what I do, smoke it at home." So you know, you can't make that up. You can't make that up.
Wow.
You're like, but you arrested me, bro, and you smoke weed too. Like, what are we doing? Like, he's like, smoke it, do what I do, smoke it at home. Yeah.
So I think the way we're you know, the legislative answer is that you know, there's a move in Albany that looks like it may pass this year. I'm not so sure. A big issue is obviously the equity, right? That it doesn't all of a sudden become legal and all the big companies you know, come into the marketplace and dominate it, and that we've got to have folks who've been harmed from the policing policies in the past be able to, you know, be entrepreneurs and not get boxed out of the space, and we got to make sure that the community is reinvested in. But I think we've got to, you know, on marijuana from that's the legislative. On the prosecutorial side, it's like, this is not you know, the case that my friend was arrested on was a waste of time, right? It was a waste of money. It was a waste of his time. It didn't make anyone safer. And so we got to see all this stuff through a public health and public safety lens, and equity and racial justice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times you've been walking down the street and you see a white person smoking something, and I've seen them smoke something right next to the police officer. So you know, we'll see what happens in the legislature. But if I'm DA, you know, marijuana possession is not something I'm interested in prosecuting.
And Black people has been criminalized because they didn't have a mask on. You know, and then they showed the disparities in other areas that it was no problem. You walk over by Carl Schutz Park, you go over there, or by the water promenade, and they're all by the mayor's mansion, no mask. Nobody's bothering them, but then they were bothering other people. I have a question for you. I just had to do a paper on police misconduct, but I'm not gonna go into that part of it. But kettling, that was my topic. kettling, and you remember what happened in the city during the curfew. If you were, even though I know the Bronx and Mount Haven section had it really bad, and I think it might have been Brooklyn and a few other, they were trying to snatch people up right before the curfew. What's your take on kettling, and how do you feel about it? Because I understand that's like a last resort, but they actually really used it as a tool to intimidate, arrest. Yeah, what's your take on kettling?
It's ridiculous. I mean, and there was a question about our attorney general earlier, and I'll say we should be talking about the lawsuit she filed a couple weeks ago, challenging the NYPD. That was very significant. We need to applaud her for that. You know, for her to sue the NYPD, and you saw the mayor's response. You know, oh, why'd you do that? No, you've had enough time, Mayor. Like, you've been mayor for what now, 7 years, and yeah, I mean, we saw the protest this summer. You're still out there every evening. We're all out there a lot, and how different communities are policed, and then the arrests, racial disparities on what people were arrested for. I'm so happy that lawsuit was brought, because we need that reckoning, and I'll be following it very closely. And then after that one was bought, actually the person I'm co-counsel with in the case representing about Mr. Garner is actually brought a private suit seeking kind of money damages for folks who suffered harm. So yeah, we've got to reform a whole range of policing practices, and that's one of them, the kettling. And one way to do that from the district attorney's seat is to say, I'm not going to work with officers who do these techniques, right? Like, a big part of their job is coming to court to testify. So you say, hey, we're not working with folks who engage in unconstitutional conduct. Well, that you're not in charge of the NYPD, right? We need to be independent and separate, but you can certainly put some guardrails up and say, we're not going to accept that conduct. And going back to the social distancing, I was so mad about this. I mean, I was hot. I testified for the city council this summer, early in COVID, on when the mayor was saying he still wanted to have the police involved in social distancing enforcement. I have an 11-year-old son. Right, we're coming off of I got a 15-year-old daughter, but the story's about the son. We're coming off of the George Floyd protest. We're being told to wear the mask. My son is saying, I don't want to wear a face mask because I don't want to get shot by the police. Right, so he's 11 and he's internalized that. Right, so people don't appreciate that. Right, they say, oh, what's the big deal? No, like, he's 11 and he's internalized that. And then you go out and you turn on the news and you see, downtown they're handing out hand sanitizer and masks, and uptown, if you don't have the mask on. So in his mind, he's 11, he's figured this out. It's like, if I wear a mask, they're gonna think I'm a robber. If I don't wear a mask, I get arrested for not wearing a mask. But how can I win? I mean, so those kind of conversations break my heart. And so I testified in front of the city council, and
Well, interesting, because we have someone in the chat room that's running for city council, and this is Carmen Q. And what's up, Carmen Q? And she has a question. She says, when will someone hold Nycha accountable for falsifying documentation and investigate where all that money went? Will you be that candidate? So, you want to elaborate on that, Alvin?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I thought you don't understand.
Well, what I was going to do is, I think SAUNDREA knows about that. What if you're talking about the money that's missing? What is?
Well, there's been a lot of mismanagement.
What is Carmen talking about?
She could explain it probably better, but there's been a lot of mismanagement throughout the years, and
absolutely
that should be utilized for us, and it's not, and it's on hold. So yeah,
I think Callum Maloney's actually trying to subpoena and investigate. I think it's $30 million a month or something that comes to Nycha. It just goes from HUD. It just goes missing, and no one knows where it goes.
Well, there's no accountability of it
at all. Yeah, so we can figure that out. That would be great.
And that's increased since the 30 million a week increase since COVID. So yeah, even the federal monitor does not know where that money goes.
Here we go.
How do we check
And
it
it is in your court, Alvin.
Yeah, no, we need a full audit of this. This is, and people sometimes when they see the big numbers, they almost assume like, oh, well, it's got to be going something good. Come on. My old office, right? I was in the public corruption unit, and you know, we one case we did was the city time case. I don't know if folks remember this. This was under Bloomberg. You know, this IT stuff. It was a $500 million fraud, right? $500 million. So sometimes people see the big numbers and say, oh, well, it's got, you know, no one would be brazen enough to take that much, or, you know, that's be going somewhere good. So no, I think we need a full top to bottom audit. And I think we start with the things we know are the documented lies, right? And just start, it's almost like a ball of string. I mean, I talk about following the facts and following the money. That's how I've done my career. I follow the money, and the money, if you follow it, will take you to the most blameworthy person. I've never met a case that didn't work that way, right? You just follow the money, and eventually the person who's benefiting the most is the architect. And you know, sometimes you have more than one person. So I think we need a full audit and follow the money. And we have places to start, right? It's not like some of these, we're talking about Trump, you know, some of the stuff is in plain sight, right? And sometimes he says, oh, well, because he said it in public, that means it, you know, it can't be. No. Let's start with what we know. Let's start with the lead. Let's start with the sanitation, and let's track it back. And you just track the money and the lies, and that's how you build a case. And I've been doing that for the past 20 plus years.
I remember that city time mess because I was working with NYPD at the time when it came in, because we used to do our payroll by hand for years with big old long timesheets. And we went into city time. So I remember that. And with the IT people, they were on site. It was crazy. Yeah.
And everyone said it was a Netflix thing, since, you know, sliced bread. And all the while, you know, money was just walking out the door.
Yeah.
Alvin, man, they got the heat in the chat room. It's crazy. Okay, so Cynthia, she said Scott Stringer has done 12 audits on Nycha, and it has gone nowhere. What do we have to say about that?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with those specific audits. Okay. I will say the power of the controller is different from the power of the district attorney, right? So the controller is auditing to make policy changes, to find weaknesses. I found in my career when I'm doing a kind of public corruption investigation, there's a certain truth serum that comes with criminal power that you can really probe in a way. I mean, it's great to have the auditors do an audit, but the power of you know, kind of a criminal investigation can really, and I can give some examples. You know, I did a case where we prosecuted the person, and some folks may remember this. There was a push to bridge the digital divide about 15 years ago and get some of our schools that weren't online. And the person they put in charge of that, put someone in charge of the project in a due diligence. His job was to make sure no one stole. You always got to look at that person. So he set up a bunch of shell companies, funneled $3 million back to himself, and bought a bunch of fancy cars and big house. And so we prosecuted him for that, again, following the money. And so that's something where an audit could have turned up that the money was missing, but the ability to prosecute and hold accountable actually caused more people to come forward. Like, we knew there was something wrong, but as we built the case, there were more people that said, okay, well, yeah, you know, let me tell you what I know. And that tends to happen more when you've got a criminal investigation, more so than just an audit. So I haven't seen those audits, but those are my general thoughts.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play your video again of the commercial that you had, and then we'll be right back because we have, you know, different viewers that have popped in and out of the room. So I want to make sure that they see that.
In America, we're all supposed to be equal under the law, every single one of us. That's what the civics books say. That's what we're taught in school. But even now, even here in Manhattan, too often there are two standards of justice. One for the rich and powerful and connected, and another for everyone else. It's not just the cases of the famous and privileged with their high-powered legal teams who manage to escape prosecution. It's the stories of all those who don't. The homeless man who buys food and toothpaste with a counterfeit bill and gets 3 to 6 years in jail. The woman living in a shelter, prosecuted for selling a single cigarette on a downtown street. And the countless New Yorkers unfairly held on Rikers Island simply because they can't afford bail. I'm Alvin Bragg, and I'm running for Manhattan District Attorney to change that. I'm a son of Central Harlem, a husband and father raising 2 kids here, and someone who spent the better part of 2 decades in the courtroom, standing up to the powerful and fighting to get justice. As the Chief Deputy Attorney General in New York State, I oversaw some of the office's biggest cases, from exposing illegal behavior by the Trump Foundation to taking on banks for housing discrimination. And I led the special unit that investigated police-involved killings. As a federal prosecutor, I successfully prosecuted corrupt politicians, Democrat and Republican. I've always fought to defend the rights of those without status or power, the New Yorkers who need justice most and deserve it. As DA, from day one, I'll work to make the office the progressive leader it should be. That means more aggressive steps to reverse mass incarceration, especially in communities of color. It means thorough and transparent investigations of police misconduct and overhauling the sex crimes unit to get justice for victims. It means bringing new funding and focus to reentry programs and refusing to take campaign donations from any lawyer who appears before the office. And it means continuing to keep neighborhoods safe and ensuring one standard of justice for all of us who call Manhattan home. That's what I'm going to do as district attorney, and that's why I'm running.
Great. All right, there you go. Hold on, you gotta get the handcuffs for that.
I gotta give me one of those in my house.
Very well produced, my friend. Very well produced. So, what I wanted to ask you is, so how's the campaign going? How's your momentum? Where are you in the standings? What's up?
So I think things are going very well. You know, we've been, so the incumbent Cy Vance hasn't said what he's going to do yet, but everyone is assuming he's not running. He's not raising money actively. So it's we've got a field of sort of 8 other folks, and we're doing well by all the sort of kind of think traditional measures. I hate using money as a marker, but everyone else does. So we just had our filings, and you know, we raised more than any other candidate, except for there's a billionaire in the race who's kind of, you know, we hear sort of self-funding, so to speak, as we hear that. So we're not trying to catch that candidate, but we've got more cash on hand than anyone else. And then, you know, I'm Manhattan, obviously, and we've got some really key endorsements.
Okay.
Senator Robert Jackson, Assemblymember Al Taylor, Dominique and Ashley Sharpton,
Okay.
and really feeling good about the direction and momentum of the campaign. And, you know, we're now in 2021. So I think all eyes are focusing on it. And the message that we are talking about really goes back to those early experiences, right? Of being stopped at gunpoint by the police 3 times. So knowing police accountability, but also knowing real public safety, right? Having a gun, I've had a knife to my neck, I've had an AK to my head, and I've had a homicide victim on my door. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Did you live in Brownsville when that happened? I'm just wondering. I had the same experience.
Harlem in the 80s, man. Harlem in the 80s.
I had the same experience when I came out of my house. I was living in Brownsville, right over on off of Livonia, and in Marcus Garvey, you can go down the steps, and that was my door. And one morning, I woke up to go to work, and this person was propped against my door, and they had shot him dead and propped him against the door in the middle of the night. I had the very same experience. That's so crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're the first person I met that's had that experience like me.
Well, I'm not the goal is that no one will have that experience going forward, hopefully.
Correct. That's what we want you for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
where I am in this race. There are a bunch of folks who are, you know, former prosecutors, like I am, and then there's some other folks who are, you know, activists, and you know, I'm the one person who's both, right? I'm someone who knows how to build the kind of cases that make us safe, but I didn't grow up in the Manhattan DA's office, so I didn't do the case with the, you know, homeless person, you know, buying food and toothpaste and going to jail for 3 to 6 years. But I know how to do cases, you know, sex offenses, gun trafficking, they actually have to do real safety. But I also have done more civil rights work in the courtroom than anyone in the race too, right? The Eric Garner case I mentioned, suing the state police for excessive force, prosecuting FBI agent for lying, leading the work on stop and frisk. So working on a school to prison pipeline and holding school districts accountable who discriminate against kids. So I feel good. I feel good. I feel like that message is resonating. I feel like the voters are looking to me to someone that can really help. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? It is moving the public conversation on these issues. You know, for so long, these issues have been really criminalizing poverty and race and weaponizing it, and changing that dialogue to talk about true public safety, true public health, being in partnership with community. I'm so excited about the ability to deliver really much needed, long overdue change to Manhattan. And, you know, the hope obviously is, you know, all eyes are on, I mean, I don't want to disrespect any of the 4 other boroughs. I love all of New York City, but I'm a Manhattan.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
You know,
Let's go.
Speak it, talk it. It's okay.
Go ahead.
He can do it. He can do it. Manhattan in the house. I'm with you.
I just think you know, the country looks to us, right? I think of what we do here will really reverberate throughout the country. And, you know, I think about, you know, it's not just Manhattan. I think about my late friend Ken Thompson and what he did in Brooklyn, and that really started this whole movement, right?
Phenomenal, yeah.
And so again, it's sort of people looking to New York and saying, "Oh, if you can do it there." You know, we've been leading everything since, you know, probably since before hip hop, but during my time, you know, this is Grandmaster Flash and, you know, Sugar Hill, we've been leading since then. Everyone copies us, so let them copy us in criminal justice reform too.
Okay.
And I think this is a great time for you to, you know, run. And what I'm enjoying is the shift in the political climate in the country itself right now, because now obviously we have Joe Biden in office, but we have the first Black person, you know, and Black woman, no doubt, as the vice president. So I think this is a great time in politics for minorities. I mean, who's the person for Secretary of State who's also he's Black. He's Black. He's the first cabinet member that's been installed, and I just think that this is a real, you know, I'm 54 years old. I'm like you. So I'm that last generation that didn't think we'd ever see a Black president, right? I'm that generation. I'm the, you know, hopscotch generation, play tag, no cell phones generation. And
Skelsies.
If you were in Brownsville, you were playing Coco Livio probably. Though.
That's right, Coco Livio. You know, and I'm also that kid that was abused by the police, like what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? I'm all of those things, and was there to see hip hop actually kind of grow and happen, because I was also from the Bronx and I was there with Bambaataa and all these other, you know, acts in the streets. So what I'm driving at is, I just think seeing that time change and evolve to where we are today is powerful. I mean, like we've done it. The dream has kind of been realized, really, you know what I'm saying, from Martin Luther King. And I'm just saying, bro, I don't know if I can vote for you because I live in Queens.
You can't.
I can't.
You can't.
But if I could, I would vote.
Oh, I think you froze.
No, but are we frozen?
Can you still hear me?
I can't. You froze for a second, but I can hear you. What I was going to say, tell 5 friends who live in Manhattan.
There you go. That's it. Yeah.
Got one right here.
That's it. 5 friends live in Manhattan. You got to vote for my man. Like,
think about, you know, so my parents both came up from Virginia. They went to segregated schools in Petersburg, Virginia, which if you drive down south, that's where 85 and 95 hits. And I'll never forget when Barack Obama won and he won Virginia. My mom, who's now passed away, I mean, it was she just couldn't process it. You know, it was overwhelming to her thinking about, you know, going to segregated schools, starting out with the outhouse, right?
Okay.
You know, and some of the experiences she endured. So, you know, we have a lot to do, and that's why I'm running. We had a lot to accomplish, but I think you're right, particularly with a week like last week, that it is important to pause and say, look, man, we got a Black woman vice president, and not just we have a Black woman vice president who's walking off, you know, Air Force One with some Timberlands. Go ahead. That's great.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
That's it, yeah. I mean, we've happened. Well,
Yeah.
Alvin, you know, you're welcome to come back to the show and let us know how the things going, because we're in that hour zone where we're done. We're at the last 2 minutes of it. But I mean, you're welcome to come back anytime, brother. You know, anything we can do to support. And, you know, we have the ear of Nycha. You know, Nycha tunes in, and they tuned in today, because they definitely had their questions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
I still have something to ask.
Yeah,
I
go
have
ahead.
3 questions to ask, but 2 of them are yes or no's. You would be the first Black DA in Manhattan?
Yes.
Would you be the first Black DA in, okay, that's a yes. Roosevelt Island can vote for you?
No.
Roosevelt Island?
No.
No? Okay. Okay, even though the city council, District 5 can't, you know, because I know Ben Kalos I know they're part of the state, right? At least or something like that. Okay, so they can't vote. Okay.
Let me
all right.
double check that. I not you say Kalos' district, but I don't think so. You know,
Okay.
we're very different. We don't have the campaign finance matching. We're kind of
Okay.
different regulations. But let me
Okay.
double check now.
I was wondering, because that's, you know, another group of people out there. And lastly, qualified immunity. I know if it was abolished, we would have better governance. What's your take on that? That's my last question.
Yeah, no, we should abolish it. You know, in my day
Ooh,
job
okay.
as a professor, we did a panel 5 months ago. I've been pushing for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act down in DC, which would address qualified immunity. It's definitely a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but that's one of them. That would really be a good step forward.
That's one of my big calls for, because I know we'll see better governance and in policing as well, elected officials and policing. Thank you.
And with that being said, Alvin, once again, man, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Alvin Bragg for District Attorney of Manhattan.
Yeah. How can they donate?
How can they donate? How can they donate to your campaign?
AlvinBragg.com. So ALVIN
straight up
BRAGG.com. That's our website. You can contribute. You can, equally as important, you can volunteer. We're having a big volunteer meeting tomorrow night. We're kicking off the new year. We'll see what the governor is going to do on petitions, but you know, we're going to be out with, you know, street teams and socially distanced mass ways. But yeah,
where's that meeting taking place? Where's the meeting taking place?
The meeting is taking place tomorrow night in Zoom at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Anyone wants to? I'm Alvin Bragg NYC on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So the information, Alvin Bragg NYC. Information on the meeting will be there.
Fantastic. And with that, people.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it so much. Great hanging out with y'all. Love what y'all do.
You really made this easy and fun and informative.
Well, thanks for all your leadership. This is great.
Thank you.
All
we'll
right.
see you.
We're lifting off.
All right.
One night to one people.
One night to one people.